Hi, in this video, we will cover interpreting graphs and data questions subtype, right? So let's start. On your official SAT, you're likely to see 1 to 2 questions that refer to a graph or a diagram. You might be asked to interpret the data in a bar graph or a scatter plot, a table, or any other type of infographic. Your job will be to select the choice that accurately reflects the information in the graph. In other words, three choices will read the graph incorrectly. What are tips and strategies? Number one, explore the graph. As soon as a question refers to a graph, go take a look. Read the title of the graph and the label on each of the axes. Take note of what's being measured and what units are being used. What story does the graph tell? Are any trends obvious from a quick glance? When we know what types of measurements and units to expect in the choices, we are less likely to be misled. Number two, focus on quantities. One of the choices for these questions will contain errors in grammar. Okay, none of the choices for these questions will contain errors in grammars or rhetoric. So they'll all sound good. Instead, the choices will be correct or incorrect based purely on quantitative analysis that they represent. So be mindful of that. Right. So let's do a practice question. The passage is, it has long been known that sea otters living along the west coast of North America help keep kelp forests in their habitat healthy and vital. Right. So kelp forests, I think, are a type of forest because I haven't been introduced to the word kelp previously, but that doesn't matter. They do this by feeding on sea urchins and other herbivorous invertebrates that graze voraciously on kelp. Right. So, if the animals which eat on those forests are no longer there, then obviously the forest will grow more. With sea otters to keep the population of sea urchins in check, kelp forests can flourish. In fact, the presence of sea otters for 2 years or less will completely eliminate sea urchins in the coastal area. Right. So the question, so that is the underlined part, and now we have to see what are the questions. Right. So which choice offers an accurate interpretation of the data in the graph? So if you look at the graph title is Effects of Sea Otter Presence on Kelp and Sea Urchin Density in Coastal Areas. If you look at the legend, gray is for kelp and darker black is for sea urchins. So if you start from the left, when there were no otters present, there were more sea urchins and the density of kelp is less, right? So moving on in the middle, when the otters were present for 2 years or less, the density of kelp increases significantly, not proportionately, and the density of sea urchin decreases, but it's still there. Some of them are still there. And the third is, which is the rightmost, otters present for 10 years or more. So the kelp forest density has increased exponentially and the sea urchins have entirely disappeared. Now, if you look at these data points, so A is no change. Let's read A again. The presence of sea otters for 2 years or less will completely eliminate sea urchins. But if we look at the middle bars, the otters have been present for 2 years or less, but there is still some minimal density for sea urchins. They are not completely decimated or eliminated. So A is wrong. B, even 2 years or less of sea otter presence can reduce the sea urchin threat. This kind of makes sense because the sea urchin density has decreased when the otters are there for 2 years or less, and they're not completely eliminated. So that supports point B. C, kelp density increases proportionally as sea urchin density increases. So that is wrong. Actually, when the sea urchin density increases, the kelp density decreases. So this is a completely wrong option. Number D, even after sea otters were present for 10 years or more, kelp density was still lower than sea urchin density. This is wrong as well because when the sea otters were present for 10 years or more, in the rightmost bar, The sea urchins are completely eliminated and the kelp density is very high. So the correct option is option B, and we reached that conclusion by studying the graph and not falling for the incorrect options. So that's it for interpreting graphs and data question types. In the next video, we will cover another question subtype.